Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. We call it real sports talk every Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide on Charlton and Big C Sports. Today is June 24th, 2016, and we are deep in the heat of summer, Big C. Out here on the West Coast, it's about 100 degrees up and down the state. In Southern California, we're having forest fires because we have a water drought, Big C. But you're in the Southeast. You guys have too much water. What's going on, Big C? How you doing this happy Friday?
Well, Charlton, we know how to preserve our water out here because that's the purity of the moonshine to keep us cool and warm on those winter nights and everything, Charlton. We want to make sure that we stay hydrated.
Yeah.
You know, we'll find a way to ship some out to you. There is going to be a cost that's going to occur for that. So,
wait a minute. I thought you good old boys didn't have a tax or a tariff on your moonshine, Big C. Why you want to charge me? I thought we were partners.
It's not a cost, Sergeant. It's going to be called transport fee.
Okay, transport fees.
You know, somebody's got to pay the transport fees, and we're going to have to tip the guy who's transported. So it's a little extra cost in there.
Well, speaking of transport fees, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Escalade. You can only get it there brand new, and when you go down and drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. You know, Big C, I love the way you blend Hollywood and sports, and now, because you brought it up to my attention, you've covered so many events from football and basketball, boxing, and track and field and all that jazz. But I think about Scarface, and I remember Scarface, he mentioned something that you talked about yesterday with these NFL players wanting to have marijuana introduced into the league. And he said you never get high on your own supply. Now, based on that, I'm hearing a lot of things that you talked about with Robert Parrish being stopped at airports because he was bringing his own supply, but it actually helped him perform longer, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, longevity, Charlton, through taking care of his body, through getting extra rest. This is the thing that professional athletes know. You know, you have to rest and you have to take care of your body. It's like the Cleveland Cavaliers are still partying. Well, it's been 54 years since the championship has been won in Cleveland.
And J.R. Smith still can't find his shirt. President Obama, he told him, put his shirt on at least, brother. You're making us feel bad.
Well, you know, you look at the president, Charlton. This is a man that's doing a marvelous job of raising two teenage daughters.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what he's protecting them against, just as well as any other creditable father in the United States. You want to protect them against men like that.
Yeah.
Who are running around unclad and up and down the street. That's not the guy you bring home to meet your dad. J.R. Smith is doing a poor representation of professional athletes as well as Charlton as African-American men of success.
Well, see, I think you brought that point up, and I know it's one thing if you're at the beach, because California, you know, we have a lot of beachfront properties out here.
I thought it was sand drenched.
Well, it's beachfront, but you can't drink salt water, Big C. I don't know how salt water would affect the taste of moonshine, but maybe we'll find out tonight, Big C. But yeah, when you're walking around, and see, I understand how J.R. Smith feels, because I'm built just like J.R. Smith. So when you got your shirt off when you're walking around, people harass you, man. It's not just women that go through that, Big C. A lot of guys go through the same thing. Your thoughts on that, Big C?
Well, you know, it's a societal thing, Charlton, but there's also a place and a time for it.
Yeah.
You have to look at discretion in life. And when you're on that level, that stage where the entire world is watching, you want to be a little more careful about what you do in the public. And you leave yourself open, Charlton, for many allegations when you're in that position. Yeah. And so, you know, have a little sense about yourself. But Charlton, this is what we've talked about a long time. Players who have not been to college. Yeah. And J.R. Smith is one of those players who did not attend college. He came straight out of high school, along with LeBron James, which are the last two pair of players to come out of high school and win an NBA championship. Yeah. We've seen others such as a Kobe Bryant, a Kevin Garnett, but not many players, Charlton, have come out of high school and had great success in the NBA. And this even goes back to those one-and-done players, Charlton, when you look at it. Yeah. How many of them consistently find themselves in the NBA title game? You don't get that. You have a player down there in your neighborhood, Boogie Cousins. Oh, yeah. Who has become such a distraction to the Sacramento Kings and their organization. Yeah. Is that he's tweeting out during the draft last night that the organization is basically stupid.
But you know what?
He was honest.
They are stupid.
They're keeping him. That shows how stupid they are, Charlton.
And what do they say? If you do something once and you keep doing the same thing, you don't learn from it. You know, it's shame on you. You fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, he's fooled them about 10 different times, but he's right. They are stupid, and he has the balls to say they're stupid, because even stupid people know that if you allow them to be stupid and you don't question them, then you are stupid, Big C. So he's telling Vlade Divac, you're stupid for keeping me around. And Vlade, who used to be an NBA basketball player, is now like the sycophant fans that hang around just because he's an athlete. He's big and he's strong, and that's mesmerizing to a lot of people. I've seen women get affected by the same type of garbage, guys that have no character, and they bring down everybody around them, but because he's big and strong, they put up with it, Big C. Am I off the block on that? What do you think of that?
Well, you know, it's only so much negativity you can put within an organization. Then you have to cut bait, Charlton. I mean, there's very few times in history of professional sports that one guy has been the entire organization.
Yeah.
And especially in a team-oriented sport like basketball, where you have to have interactions between all the guys on the court at the same time.
Yeah.
And what has happened is that Sacramento can't even get a free agent, Charlton, because nobody wants to be with Cousins.
Right.
And when you look at it, they drafted a European player, number 13th in the draft, at center.
Yeah.
So are there future plans to get rid of Cousins, or is there immediate plans to get rid of Cousins?
Well, it reminds me last year when we're doing work at Salem Media up in Sacramento, we took them to #1 in the market with our sports station. I remember going to a game and I interviewed Coach George Carl at a soccer game for the Sac Republic FC, and DeMarcus Cousins was also there. So I simply asked Coach Carl if I could get a few words, and he said, sure. And I said, DeMarcus, can I get a few words from you? He said, no. Just like I was bothering him, and we had a camera to get a few words about the season. Now, his coach had enough class, but they got rid of the guy with class, and they kept the sycophants. And I'm telling you right now, I'm in the Sacramento market, and I also cover the Bay Area as well as Southern California, Big C. I don't think they would put up with that if they had a winning organization, but they're just happy winning 30 games a year. I think they've averaged 27 wins with DeMarcus Cousins. But you know, Big C, you've seen guys like Lawrence Taylor. You've seen guys like the Mean Joe Green. You've seen the guys that really played, the Charles Haley. You've seen big guys. You talk to Bum Phillips. You know what it's like to be around people that win. They don't put up with an attitude unless you're a losing organization. And it's like a girl that can't get a good guy. She puts up with a guy that beats up on her because that's all she feels she's worth. So the Sacramento Kings are like the abused partner, and I'm not making light of that, but they're not used to anything good since Weber and those guys left. Big C, your thoughts on that?
When you talk about Weber and Jackson and Baby Charlton, the organization that they had back then, Vlade Divac came in and was a role player when they had the great teams of the 90s and, in Sacramento.
Yeah.
But when you think about having a cancer on your team, there's been plenty of teams throughout NBA history who had a player that they would not get rid of because they kept saying potential.
Yeah.
Well, the only potential in the NBA is what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
The draft is based on potential. You're drafting these young players who really don't have a background, who's never played against pro players night in and night out.
Yeah.
And then they come in and a lot of them are awestruck, Charlton, and they spun off in a year or two. And we don't hear anything about them. It was just a wasted draft pick, as they say. When you look at a player like Ben Simmons, who went to Kentucky for a year.
Yeah.
Well, not Kentucky, excuse me, LSU.
LSU, yeah.
He was in Baton Rouge. No one else knew where he was other than practicing a game.
Yeah.
Because he had a 0 GPA.
Yeah.
Think about that a university, a major university, would allow a player to be there for an entire year and has a 0 GPA.
But Big C, you got to be honest though, because a lot of players in the SEC they have 0 GPAs not because they don't study hard, but they have a lot of concussions from having year-round football practice. Big C, that's what I think it's from. I don't want to blame the kid for the institution that allows them to go on and not study. So I won't put all the pressure on the kid. It's like the slave owner mentality. They don't want a lot of the kids to learn. And you brought it up to me, and I was kind of naive to this point. We talked about a lot of the inner city kids, and whether he's from a rural community or inner city. And this might be painful for a lot of people to hear, but a lot of the big, tall, talented black kids, that's how they describe. Oh, he's big, he's physical, he's talented, he's a beast. They can care less about him being intelligent because if he's intelligent,
he can grow into his power.
Yeah,
he's going to develop.
If he's intelligent, he challenges the system.
Seasoning.
Yeah,
and I don't get that terminology, seasoning, Jonathan. Yeah. What seasoning? I know I keep seasonings in my cabinet.
For the catfish. Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's funny how And I know people don't mean it this way, but I do know, and maybe I'm even guilty of saying it because birds of a feather flock together. I remember when Lawrence Phillips played at Nebraska for the Cornhuskers, and I think Coach Osborne,
great running back, Heisman Trophy candidate,
great running back,
and ironically lost his life about 3 months ago.
Yeah, tragic
serving a life sentence in California in prison.
A tragic ending, but the story is this kid had some issues growing up, and he had some issues in the system when they recruited him to Nebraska. Now, do you think they spent more time with Lawrence Phillips in the classroom, or did they spend more time with Lawrence Phillips in the weight room? And I bring it up, Big C, because if we don't speak out about the exploitation of the black athlete, and because we all get mesmerized by about 30 guys that are going to become instant millionaires, there's thousands of guys that are going to be pushed to the wayside because they all want to get that $1 million paycheck. And the reality is, Big C, that most of them are not going to get it. But this exploitation of the black athlete, you have this draft pick out of LSU, he's a prime example. They couldn't care less about his education because an intelligent mind can challenge the system. They want guys big, strong, and dumb, and I'm saying it just like the way they say it behind closed doors. Am I on base, Big C, or am I off base?
You are so accurate about your statement that you're making. And when you look at Lawrence Phillips, Charlton, he was suspended at Nebraska for domestic violence, okay? Let's keep that issue on the forefront when we're talking, because nobody should ever skirt around domestic violence. But Tom Osborne felt that he was so important to the football team that he found a way to skirt around the domestic violence, stop him from being charged and prosecuted, because it was about him winning football games, staying in the national championship hunt, winning a title for Nebraska. He didn't care about the young lady that had been abused.
No.
He was more concerned about his bonuses and his team being in the national spotlight,
and playing in the Orange Bowl. And in fact, I remember they had a great quarterback, an option quarterback by the name of Tommy Frazier. He also they blew out Florida in the Orange Bowl to win the national championship. And they also had Lawrence Phillips in the backfield of that same football team. And now this is the same school that had the great Roger Craig that came out of there, and also
Roger King,
Tom Rathman came out of there.
Johnny Rogers, Tim Rathman,
they had
Dave Remington, an outlet trophy winner at center. They've had a wealth of talent to come out of Nebraska that did not get in trouble, Charlton.
That did not get in trouble. But see, I look at guys like Coach Osborne, and because people don't want to say anything, they continue to exploit young black kids. Now, I'm going to be hard on myself because I have a son also, and people say, hey, he's 13 years old, he's already 6 feet tall, he should play football. I said, no, he's going to be an academic scholar, and then if he plays sports, that's fine too. But I look at the black parents, and people won't speak to them, so you and I have to, Big C. ESPN's not going to do it. But if you're a father, and you have colleges coming to your home to take your kids, your young, big, strong black boys, to take them off to college, to pump them full of steroids and other HGH products so they can be big and strong and hope they're going to make a $1 million contract, then you're at fault. Don't keep blaming the universities. We know they're coming to exploit your kids. If you don't get them an education, the parents are to be held accountable. But I understand some parents are not in a position to challenge authority, and the kids are sycophants to the limelight, Big C. So in your opinion, you've seen it from both sides. What would you say to a father or a mother when people like Tom Osborne show up, or guys from the SEC or the Big Ten show up? I'm not blaming all of them, but the ones that don't graduate kids, what would you say to those parents? How do you look out for those guys?
Well, Charlton, as much as these universities and coaches are wrong, ESPN and Fox Sports are just as wrong in their exploitation, because they're telling everybody it's going to be glamorous. You're going to be on television. This is what's going to, and you got college coaches going in and saying, we're going to be on TV every week. We're going to be on TV 7 weeks. You don't talk about you got to maintain a 3.0 GPA. That's what we're expecting from you. And that's what's wrong. And you have parents who are sitting around in situations that may not be in an economical advantage, Charlton. And they're saying, okay, last year we had 5 players drafted that are playing in the pros right now off our team. Your son, we project him as being one of the next ones in his class coming up. So that's all you see is the dollar sign. They don't see about education. They don't see about potential injury. They see the dollar sign. So that child is not only let down by the coaches, but by their parents, because they're not looking at 10 to 20 years down the road, Charles. They're looking at 1 and done, or maximum 3 years and into the draft.
Well, Big C, I want to thank you for bringing certain things to me, because I'm a bit naive too. I told you out here in California, because it's always sunshine and we don't practice football 24 hours a day like you guys in the South, sometimes we take it.
That's how you win a national championship, Charlie. You show up on game day and expect to have an 8-5 record and get into the football playoffs, Charlie.
Okay, so this,
you got to prepare for that.
Okay, I understand that part. But I also want to say a very powerful point. And this segment is sponsored by your Northern California BMW dealer, home of the ultimate driving machine. Go down and test drive the 1 Series all the way up to the super luxurious 600 horsepower M7, also known as the 760 Li. And when you test drive it, let them know that Charlton and Big C sent you. So Big C, when I think about this, and I'm a nut for this too, and I can't say that I'm not guilty of this. I love football, and football is like that beautiful woman that you've always wanted to date, and you just think about her, and you think about asking her out for a date, but you don't have the balls to do it. But she comes up to you and says, "Hey, well, can I buy you lunch?" And so it's your dream, right? Now the point is, she might treat you bad, but because you are so infatuated with her, you'll let her treat you bad. The universities do the same thing to the black community. I don't see them going into Beverly Hills and treating people like that. But there are places down in the southeast or in the northeast that have very affluent families, and their kids at least get an education. So it pays me when a young black family, they get sold this bill of goods that your son's going to be the next Michael Jordan or the next Reggie Bush or Franco Harris or Tom Brady or Warren Moon. It's not going to happen for 99% of them. So when I watched this NBA draft last night, as much as people are showing this stuff on TV and saying, "Hey, this guy's going to be drafted number 1 by the Philadelphia 76ers," they're not showing the guys that were just like a brothel. They were hoarded in and hoarded out, and you don't hear about them. They're not going off to get their degrees. They're just kind of being fodder for the criminal justice system because the schools don't educate them. And if you don't have money and education, how are you going to eat, Big C? And I hate the taking advantage of the black community. Now they celebrate it by even putting it on TV, Big C. Am I off the charts here, or am I right or wrong?
You're very accurate, Charlton. When you look at the NBA draft last night, okay, Charlton, the first 3 players drafted were American players, okay?
Yeah.
American players. The next 8 drafted, Charlton, were European players.
Yeah.
You had a run of 8 European players drafted, 60 players being drafted basically last night. But the Europeans, Charlton, ate up almost 20 of those players.
Yeah.
So you had all these Americans with high hopes who did not get drafted, and really only a first-round draft pick, Charlton, is guaranteed an NBA contract.
Yeah.
The rest of them will end up in the D leagues or playing in Europe. But you have to look, Charlton, how many teams were in the NCAA tournament last year for the championship? There were 64 teams, Charlton.
Yeah.
In the NCAA, actually 65 from one game.
Yeah, they played in with a playing game, yeah. And that's not including NIT, Big C.
65 teams, Charlton, in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
65. You only draft 60 players in the NBA each year.
Yeah.
So, and some schools have multiple draft picks, Charlton, so all of these guys with high expectations. And there's 132 teams playing Division I basketball in the NCAA.
Yeah.
So what's the realistic opportunity of getting a job in the NBA? So when you're being recruited and everybody's telling you, hey, you're 6'9", you're 6'10", I believe 2/3 of the players drafted last night were at least that tall, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when somebody tells them you got a tall kid that can fill out and develop, why lie to a parent? Be honest and realistic about the potential and the chance of him making it to the NBA, because we have guys that don't even go to college that come right out of high school that are in it. So when you look at the number of college basketball players drafted last night, Charlton,
yeah,
about 56 to 60% of the players drafted by the NBA last night have been college players.
Yeah.
Or college attendees. Okay?
Yeah,
college
attendees. Yeah.
And so what's the realistic opportunity of getting drafted, making a big splash in the league, and being successful? Well, it's just not there. But these fans and these families follow ESPN, which is a great network.
Yeah, I love ESPN.
A lot of great highlights and broadcasts a lot of great games.
But they're not real.
Not totally honest.
No, they're not honest.
Totally honest.
No, they're part of it.
They need to be honest. You got a producer sitting in your ear saying we can't touch on that.
Yeah.
When you're sitting there and you're scrutinizing players, you're talking about the wrong thing. At one point, it would be nice to see the worldwide leader in sports, when they talk about analytics, Charlton, talk about the analytics analytics of those who are not successful.
Yeah.
Talk about the analytics of those who get in trouble, like we spoke about the late Lawrence Phillips.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those things. They need to be honest with the public because we're all starstruck.
Oh, you know what?
Tell them the truth.
Yeah, the truth. Well, what did Jack tell us? You can't handle the truth. And I think about something, and again, I hope that we can have a Muhammad Ali holiday, and hopefully President Obama can make a push to even get the word about that, because he did so much for society. And I just want to bring this up because it was a very poignant show, and we haven't seen much about it from that last week. But when we had Harry Edwards, professor out of Cal, also Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hall of Famer, and the great Jim Brown, Hall of Fame also for the NFL, they were talking about what are players going to do. It was a story that was more important than O.J. Simpson, the American story, or whatever it was called, because they talked about going forward. The O.J. story that ESPN put so much money into, that's about the past. That's like talking about slavery and all the stuff that we can't change. But what Harry Edwards...
You think about it, Charles.
Yeah.
Here it was ESPN putting all that money forth, talking about a sporting event. That was a criminal act.
Yeah, on a spousal abuser. Yeah, a spousal abuser.
It was about criminal, suspected criminal activity is what ESPN had gone to. They didn't talk about, they didn't celebrate.
They sensationalized it.
OJ's great career.
No.
They wanted to talk about his alleged criminal involvement.
Well, it was still still the fact that O.J. Simpson was beating up on a white woman, blonde hair, blue eyes. There's a lot of women who are battered throughout the country, whether they're minority, whether they're black or Hispanic or Asian. White men beating up on white women too. But they made this thing about O.J.'s black. He dated a white woman, then he married her, and then he beat up on her. Who knows what happened in the criminal case? All we know is the verdict, but he was not guilty, irrespective of what you think. I'm just saying the criminal justice system. Then the same cops that beat the hell out of Rodney King, we all saw that on videotape, and that jury said, no, that's not what we saw. So that's a racial issue, and that's what ESPN was trying to bring up again. They wanted people to feel that hatred. But this is the same thing I think ESPN can be accountable for. You have the pulpit. You're the world sports leader. And because I'm African American, if I don't see it, I'm not going to expect some white guy to come in and speak for young black kids, or white kids either. They're just about the money. But this is for the parents. Because the same people tried to recruit me when I was coming out of school. But my mom's too intelligent to let that happen. She said, you got to get an education. But these same kids right now, that they had a parade for these big, strong, young black kids on ESPN all day yesterday about who can be the next pseudo millionaire. It's a false hope, because there's a couple of guys that made $100 million and they're broke now. Not because they were intelligent, they're broke because they were exploited. And the same multi-hour program that ESPN put on to exploit the next black athlete, they don't talk about the guys that were put it through the system and they were failed by the universities. And I wish they would have the guts to do it, but Jim Rohn's right, they don't have the balls to do it. They just want to be a part of that problem of let's get the next black athlete, let him think he's going to be rich, and if he doesn't make it, we'll just go to the next one, Big C. And I think, at least I appreciate you for opening my eyes to those thoughts, Big C.
Well, it's a cattle call, Charlton. We're going to look at the next body. When they're running the steer through the slaughterhouse, do they care what color it is? No, they don't.
No.
All they look at is the haunches on it. Same way that these colleges are looking at the buttocks of these big linemen.
Yeah.
They're looking at the shoulders. The basketball coaches are looking at the length of their arms. You think that this is a slave block, Charlton, where they're sitting there measuring the intangibles of these people. Not once are they giving them a listening test, Charlton.
Yeah.
Checking their intelligence.
Yeah.
It's all about their physical measurements. This is the only thing they're looking at. And when these guys are being recruited, when you look at the draft last night, Charlton, which is appalling.
Yeah.
They're sitting there talking about, he's 6'3", but he's got the wingspan of a 7-footer.
Yeah.
I never once, Charlton, heard of
his
any
GPA.
player's major last night.
His GPA or major, yeah.
They never talked about what he was majoring in college.
Yeah.
No one ever mentioned a player's GPA, Charlton.
Yeah, I know. And it's a shame.
None of these things they ever mentioned. This is like livestock.
Yeah.
This is a big buck. He's going to be a breeder.
Yeah.
They might as well say that on television, because if you can't tell me that a guy has a 7'2" wingspan, but his GPA is only 1.4, because he didn't attend class, you can tell me that this guy is 6'9" with a 42-inch vertical leap, but his GPA was 1.7, and he only had 6 credits, that he attended. Why can't these broadcasters talk about that? Because this guy is a senior, Buddy Hield. That he was a senior. He's only 3 credits short of graduating. Tell me that, Charlton. Well, tell me something that gives inspiration to the next man coming along that he has a future from academics and not just sports.
Oh, that's very powerful, Big C. And speaking of powerful, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Ford dealer, home of the all-new F-150. They build it Ford tough. When you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Also, Beneath His Wings Foundation.org. Make a donation today. It's easy, it's fast and secure. And when it comes to promotion, contact Cynthia Evans at CYNN Entertainment. When it comes to promotion, she's the best in Northern California. And let her know that Charlton and Big C sent you. You can also make a donation to Charlton Big C Sports. So, Big C, the thing that really bothered me about watching this, I remember we talked about Roots. Alex Haley produced that back in the day when I was a young boy.
Back in '77 when it came on television.
Yeah, and they always describe the black athlete, especially when it comes to men. They don't do this to the women, and they don't do it to the white kids. They always talk about he's 6'9", 240 pounds, he has a 40-inch vertical leap, and he also scores 30 points a game, and blah, 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 blah. Nothing about his educational achievements, nothing about his community involvement, nothing about what his parents had done to work so hard to put the kid in college. It's just like, let's get this big, black, strong kid and let him make money for our program. And, of course, we can't pay these kids. And I even think Jay Billis dropped the ball because he's an attorney out of Duke. He's a guy that got an education. Now, he may have been told, hey, don't talk about this if you want to keep being on TV. He's the one that said that not paying athletes is an antitrust violation. But as you see, most of these athletes are black. Most of these institutions are Caucasian run. They don't want to pay black kids. And when you pay the black kid, you pay his parents because it takes the burden off of the family paying for college. Even if he has a scholarship, they still got to send money to this kid to get other things that makes life more comfortable. So the pushback on not paying kids is a pushback on not paying the black family, and that's what Jim Brown was talking about, where I thought Jim Brown got it wrong. He put the onus on the athletes to give back. I think you're wrong with that, Jim Brown. The onus should be on the universities. They're the one raking in tens of millions of dollars. Am I in the ballpark, Big C? Your thoughts on that?
Well, the true antitrust, Charlton, is not allowing these kids to get an education.
Yeah.
That's the true antitrust. To exploit them in their recruitment, saying that you're going to come to one of the major academic institutions, but you don't have to go to class. We will make sure that you don't fail. We will provide the necessary need for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to get an education. We'll get it for you. But if you fail and you haven't been a success on the field, on the court that we expect, we will yank your scholarship, is what we would do. And that's one of the things that they could have talked about on the show last night.
Yeah.
Every year, Charlton, these universities bring in 5 to 6 players.
Yeah.
Okay? They're not graduating them. What happened to the players that they replaced? Okay, if you had one kid going in the draft, you recruited 5 players.
That's the point.
What happened to that surplus of 4, Charlton?
Well, they had one of
the things that these broadcasters don't talk about that the public is naive to. They keep thinking of the cycle of players coming in.
Yeah.
What's happening with the players going out?
Because
who won the national championship last, Charlton?
I think it was North Carolina. No, it was Villanova beat North Carolina.
Villanova.
Yeah.
Villanova had a point guard drafted, Charlton.
Yeah.
In the first round. I believe it was the 3rd pick in the draft.
Yeah.
But what happened to the rest of the players on that roster, Charlton? You're a national championship team. What happened to the rest of the players? And we also know North Carolina finished as the runner-up.
Yeah.
They had a player taking a forward, taken in the first round. But this was a team that was under NCAA investigation for lack of academic standards.
Yeah, I think it was Bryce Johnson. He was drafted by the Los Angeles Clippers. And you talk
so if you're under investigation for lack of academic standards and upholding that, what's going to happen to all those players that were drafted? You already indicated they didn't go to class.
But see, Big C, and I'm glad you're touching on it because it's a painful subject because it's not happening at a high rate to Caucasian athletes. For the most part, and I'm not trying to sound stereotypical, but for the most part, there's a bigger push to make sure the Caucasian athlete gets an education. It's a bigger push by the academic institution to make sure they get an education. And that starts at the kindergarten level. That's not just the college level. But I think that's unfortunate that people don't speak out against it. Because if they start speaking out against it, guys like John Skipper, who's the president of ESPN, he doesn't even have the content that we have on our show. And he's supposed to be the sports leader. Because if we have real conversations, you would benefit society by having people come to your university and actually learn something other than just dunking a basketball or hitting a home run or how to run the 40 and 4.5. I mean, that's what they talk about all the time, this wingspan, how much upside he has, his basketball IQ. They don't talk about his classroom IQ.
And Charlton, they don't even talk about the basketball IQ. If you look at the Final Four last year in Houston, 19 of the 20 starters in the Final Four last year, Charlton, were African American.
Yeah.
19 of the 20 starters of the Final Four team were African American.
And that's why they won't pay them.
They don't sit up and talk about those African American kids' background.
Yeah.
They don't talk about the strife that they had to go through in growing up.
Or their parents.
From whatever household that they came from, whether it was single parent, dual parent. They don't talk about the problems in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
They just talk about what you just mentioned. He has great basketball leaping ability.
Yeah.
He has great court awareness.
Yeah.
I am so appalled, and I'm in the industry, Charlton.
Yeah.
But I am so appalled with all of the broadcast industry that none of these people talk about the players' GPA or what they're majoring in college.
Yeah, yeah.
How many players in the draft last night, Charlton? How many? I would challenge ESPN, Fox, or any other sports outlet to tell me how many of these players had declared a major in college, or were they just under general studies?
Yeah, they're under the
general. Tell me how many players had declared a major. How many credits any of these players had, Charlton, towards a university degree?
And see, that's so powerful, Big C, because if they don't hear it on Charlton and Big C Sports, all they're going to hear about is who won the game, who's in first place in the AL West, who's in first place in the NL West, and that's what they're going to hear. They're not going to hear about that. And I say it again because once you make it to the pro level, then you have enough money to at least go out and get some good advice. But oftentimes, because you're intellectually vapid, you get advice from people who take all your money. And when they had a couple of players, even the Charles Sprewell's making the money, making a commercial of how he went through $100 million. And speaking of $100 million, this final segment is sponsored by United Labor Life Insurance, guaranteed issue with no medical questions up to $100,000. Also, Goosehead Property and Casualty, we beat about 99% of the people when it comes to a quote. And also, I'm a national insurance broker with One Life America. We're the leaders when it comes to final expense. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and let them know that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, Big C, I think this is so powerful going into the weekend because we're talking about who's going to go into the Olympics. We're talking about who's going to be competing for Major League Baseball's playoff races. We're talking about what's going to happen when the NFL football and college football season kicks off. But I just want to bring this up because it's so poignant to me. The exploitation of the black athlete was only the tip of the iceberg with Muhammad Ali, how he was honored for always trying to get back to the communities, and how UPS came in with a $500 million donation to the Ali Center. Okay? Other corporations can do that. But the plight of the African-American community, and also you poor white kids, is they need an education, not to have a 7-foot wingspan or run the 40 and 4.5 or bench press 500 pounds. That's not going to help them in life. And when you have the sports leader, they're like a sycophant to it. They become part of the problem instead of part of the solution, the way you brought it up to me, Big C. So even I was naive, and I opened my eyes because I listened to you. At first I thought he's just an angry guy from the South and dealing with Jim Crow. I'm not making light of Jim Crow. But as I see more and more, it is just big exploitation of the black athlete all over again. Big C, your thoughts on that?
Hey, Charlton, I can walk down the street with my shirt off and get
okay.
I'm not angry. I'm just nervous when I'm in the public with my shirt off.
Yeah.
I've learned about exploitation years ago.
Yeah.
So, the thing is, when you look at this, it's an ongoing process. When we talked about desegregation, how it destroyed the historical black colleges athletically.
Yeah.
And those kids who had opportunities at the historic black colleges and they could play in front of full stadiums, now they can't, Charlton. The funds are not there. All the best athletes, just like when the Negro Leagues dissolved, that Major League Baseball talked about, no, we're integrating. Major League Baseball and Brett Rickey saw a financial opportunity.
Yeah.
If I can get the fans out of the stands at a Negro League game and put them out in my bleachers, I have a full stadium.
Yeah.
That's what he was looking at. It wasn't about bringing African-American baseball players into the Major League. It was about taking the African-American dollar. And he paid the players less than the money he was taking from the African-American fans. So it was a win all the way around for him. And when we look at that now, it was the leaders in sports that are on television every day that will not address the real issue because they want to glorify
Yeah.
The winning score. Somebody hitting a home run. Somebody with a dunk. When was the last time that they talked about an athlete as far as his community involvement and giving back? And we've talked about that from both sides, from corporate and athletic.
Yeah.
When was the last time they talked about what this basketball player, football player had a college degree in?
Yeah.
When was the last time they did that? They've never done that. They don't touch on these things. But certain players, Charlton, they will deal with. The Anglo players, the white players, they will talk about, they have a degree in this, a degree in that. But I have not heard of an African-American player while he's playing what he has a degree in, Charlton, in any major sport.
Yeah, and because...
We don't get that, and especially now with them all leaving early.
Yeah, and I think you're so right, Big C. Just like, Paul Bear Bryant, the great coach, legendary coach at Alabama, when he scheduled the game at USC with John McKay, and USC beat them that time the same way they're going to beat them this year in the Kickoff Classic, he said, I got to get me some of them. He didn't say I got to bring these kids in to get education. He was talking about the black athlete. And so I just think that same type of bigotry is going on, but they put a smile on their face nowadays. And I just hope that these parents of the young kids, and I'm talking to myself as well, make sure you ask these coaches when they show up to recruit your kids, just have them bring the GPAs of everyone that they've ever recruited. Let them show you the GPAs, not how many people went pro, the GPAs, because it's all about the money. And speaking of money, Big C, California's making millions. $360 million is going to be won by Charlton Big C Sports. But I just want you to know, Big C, as we close out, going into the weekend, we're all still hyped up over the Cavaliers and their stage championship. Good job, NBA, getting into Hollywood also. But also this farce of parading these young black athletes across the stage, giving them a hat and a jersey, saying you're going to be rich. It's like mesmerizing to the young kids in the inner city and their parents. They should say this is only going to happen to less than 1% of you, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Not even less than 1%, Charlton. Like I said, there were 60 players or so drafted last night.
Yeah.
And 20 or so of those, Charlton, came from the European blocks.
Yeah.
They were not American. So roughly 40 Americans were drafted last night, Charlton, 40. And we talk about 130 schools playing Division I basketball, not counting the guys who come out of high school that in the draft and hoping to get taken by one of these teams. So, Charlton, when you sit there and blatantly lie to these young men that are in high school, that are in junior high, because someone has told you you're going to be the next great one. And this is what we talk about, lack of education.
Yeah.
They cannot even do the math, Charlton. You can't do the math. They got 40 Americans drafted last night, Charlton. 40.
They got to put 40 guys out of a job.
40. Not only that, Charlton, but 40. There was 64 teams in the NCAA tournament, 65 in the NCAA tournament.
And that's not including the NIT.
Yeah, that's the NIT, and there was another 48 teams there, Charlton.
Yeah. And
so
most of them black.
100 teams in postseason tournaments.
Yeah.
You got 40 players being drafted. Who's the dummy not telling these kids the realistic numbers, Charlton?
Yeah, and
somebody has to open up, be honest. I mean, sports is a great venue.
Yeah.
It's great entertainment. It's world entertainment. It draws people together socially and economically.
Yeah.
But let's stop exploiting and be honest with these young men who don't have the education to understand statistics. I mean, we all talk about, not we all, but you hear it on TV all the time, analytics.
Yeah.
Analytics is only statistics.
Yeah.
And so when they say analytics, these young minds are not understanding what analytics means.
Yeah.
Tell them statistically.
Yeah.
Your chance, if you're a college basketball player, of making the NBA is only 1/100 of 100%, okay? Of 1%.
Yeah.
1/100 of 1% making the NBA. You need to get an education.
And education, I think they just get an education, Big C. They get it worldwide every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's why we call it Real Talk Big C. Big C, also known as The Mystic. You can listen to him Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. worldwide on Charlton Big C Sports. We thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.